commission must extend an apology to all the fans out there for missing last week's report. Sad to say the commission had a death in the family. Grandpa, I know you're up there watching. I love you. Okay, got a lot of news to get into, bringing you from the past 2 weeks. We'll cover all the week 3 matchups, the weekly awards, of course this week, week 4's matchups, including the commission's game of the week, the current standings, and the always favorite Natty's finest power rankings. We'll recap last week's games right after these messages. It's Natty's finest, it's commission.
Yo!
Hey, what's up? What's up, Matty?
Who's messing with my Heisman?
Herschel.
Hey. Looks good.
Welcome back. Let's recap last week's matchups. First game we'll talk about is between Dem Boys versus If You Ain't First, You're Last. Dem Boys was able to pull a victory out 91-78 on the back of his studs, Matt Ryan and Darren McFadden, both putting up 20-plus points. I do want to make a statement on this game. I checked the bench of If You Ain't First, You're Not Last, and they had Jamal Charles, 44 points in all on the bench. How do you sit your second-round draft pick on the bench? That's got to be the commissioner's bench of the week. Moving on. So Fucking Legit versus America's Team. This game was just boring to watch. It was one of them defensive struggles. So Fucking Legit ended up taking it 70-69 in the end. If they played any other team, either of these teams, they would have lost. So, you got to score 100, guys. At least 100. You know what the commission says. Next up, we had the Wildcats versus EA Sports. Wildcats put up 106, but EA Sports put up more, 136. Had Schaub sitting on his bench, putting up 47 and still won. Kudos, I know you're going to start him next week. MF Jones, formerly Franchise, versus You Just Got Mossed. MF Jones just mollywopped the floor with You Just Got Mossed, and he scored 123-62. 4 players on his team put up 20, including the commission's start of the week. That would be the Detroit Lions, Mikael LaShore with 100 yards and a tutty. You picked him up on Sunday morning. Great pickup. Can't go wrong with that. Whole effing show versus Whoa There. 20-plus points by Stafford and Andre Johnson for Whoa There. Andy Dalton on your bench for the second straight game. He put up 44 points. You got a conundrum, Whoa There. You got to do something. Either bench your #1 draft pick or start Andy Dalton. I mean, one of the two is going to have to do. Last game, the Rook versus Gully Gully. Everyone was in double digits for Gully Gully. You just can't beat that. He put up 156. The Rook only put up 115. Sorry about your luck. You just played that guy who put up big numbers that week. Weekly awards, just recapping. Week 1 was the Rook putting up the highest total points by a team. Week 2 was highest points by any player. That was Eli Manning on If You Ain't First, You're Not Last. Week 3, last week, was highest points by a quarterback. So Fucking Legit got that by Peyton Manning, putting up 30. This week, week 4, will be highest points by a running back. And as always, it'll be a $20 prize straight from the Natty's Finest Studios to you. Speaking of week 4, let's take a look at this week's matchups. Starting with If You Ain't First, You're Not Last versus the Wildcats. If You Ain't First, You're Not Last comes in at 1-2. The Wildcats at 2-1. I'm kind of leaning towards If You're Not First, You're Not Last. However, the Wildcats do have that tandem of running backs I just love. Ray Rice and my boy MJD. You just can't bet against them, Next game up, America's Team 2-1 versus EA Sports. 1-2, trying to get back on the winning stride. I like EA Sports in this game. Kind of an upset. Can't go wrong with his wide receivers. He's got Megatron over there. He's got Big Brandon Marshall. He's got AJ Green. Them 3 receivers produce a mildly good game. He's going to put up big numbers. Whole effing show coming in at 1-2 versus MF Jones coming in at 2-1. Should be a close game. think MF Jones, just because the big play potential between RG3, Aaron Foster, and Gronk, you got to go with them. I think they have more of an upside. Next up, You Just Got Mossed versus The Rook. Another close game. Maybe too close to call, in my opinion. You Got Mossed does have a lot of injuries he needs to address. Leaning towards The Rook on that note, I have to say. Woe Dare coming in at 2-1 on a 2-game winning streak versus Gully sitting at 1-2. Probably the most even matchup of the week, tell you the truth out there, fantasy world. Not even gonna call it right now, let you guys call it out there. And next up we have the commission's game of the week between So Fucking Legit sitting at 2-1 versus them boys sitting at 2-1. Obviously this game will be for a possession of first place, one of the best records. I'll probably come down to the Monday night game. I checked the lineups already, and them boys does have DeMarco Murray on schedule for a Monday night start, so it's probably going to come down to that. You know, we'll see how it goes. I think that's going to call it. Okay, got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the standings. I'll get to the Natty's Finest Power Rankings. It's the commish, Natty's Finest Studios. You know what's up.
A wise man once said, "Never mix business with pleasure." But when you use Old Spice Champion, mixing business with pleasure is nobody's business. Nope. Hope you like pancakes.
And we're back. Let's take a look at the standings thus far in the 2012 Natty's Finest Fantasy Football League. As you know, the Natty's Finest only has one division this year, and only the top 8 make it, just like last year. Looks like we've got 6 teams sitting at 2-1 and 6 teams sitting at 1-2, so very even right now. Basically, that tells me anything can and will happen from this point on. Still a long season left to go. Next up, my favorite, I know your favorite out there, we'll get into the Natty's Finest Power Rankings, brought to you by Natty's Finest Studios. Who else? Week 4 Power Rankings brought to you by Natty's Finest Studios. 1. MF Jones. 2. America's Team. 3. Dem Boys. 4. Whoa There. 5. You Just Got Mossed. 6. Sofa King Legit. 7. The Rook. 8. EA Sports. 9. Gully. 10. The Wildcats. 11. The Whole Effin' Show. 12. If you ain't first, you're 12th. Well, that about wraps it up for this week's report. I'm the commish. Good luck to all the fantasy owners out there, and always, may the odds be ever in your favor. It's the commish, Natty's Finest Studio.